You can walk wherever you want. The door's going to stay open for a minute, though.
All right. How are y'all doing? You having a good time with Truth Quest?
Yep.
Good. So my name's Tammy O'Connor, and I'm one of the youth leaders at Willow Hills Baptist Church. And I'm also a pro-life activist, so I actively engage in trying to change our culture's hearts and minds toward life. This subject's important to me because abortion is part of my story. And I thank God it's not the end of my story. More than 25 years ago, I made decisions that led to abortions. And I remember the regret, the shame, the guilt that I felt immediately after my abortion. And it was a very dark time in my life because I felt that shame and regret. I hadn't even left the clinic yet. And I felt among the shame and guilt for the very first time in my life, I felt a little danger of hell. Because I knew this was wrong, what I did, and I knew that it grieved God's heart. And so if you grieve God's heart, what other options are you? So I spent a lot of time in prayer, praying to God and asking for His forgiveness for what I had done. And that's when God reached out to me during that time and showed me that that's why Christ had to die on that cross. Because I couldn't be a good enough person in my own strength. No matter how hard I tried, He didn't just die. Jesus didn't just die for those sinners 2,000 years ago. And He didn't just die for all those other sinners out there. He died for me because I'm a sinner. And that's when He became real and He became personal to me. I found a good Bible-believing church and I was baptized there and became very active in my church. Especially with evangelism, because the biggest message I always wanted to share with other people is that Jesus saves sinners, right? I did have this deep, dark secret. I became very involved in my church evangelism, international mission trips. I taught Sunday school class, but I had this deep, dark secret that if anyone found out what I had done, they wouldn't let me do all of that. I'd be rejected. I'd be shunned. Right? And to be honest, I was going to carry that secret with me to the grave. I was never going to tell anybody about what I did. But God had another plan as far as that goes. I did feel that I needed to give back in the pro-life area, give back in the place where I fell. And so I started helping at our local pregnancy center. And I enjoyed that, but I really wanted to stand up against the evil of abortion and let people know what this is all really about, right? What it'll do to them, why it's wrong. And so I'll never forget, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to be involved in the pro-life movement. And I'll never forget when my Sunday school teacher gave me a flyer for 40 Days for Life, inviting me to go out and pray outside of an abortion clinic in 1-hour shifts. And I said, man, this is great. I love to pray. I love to talk to God. And nobody would know what I was doing out there, right? And so I went out. This was in Memphis, Tennessee, to the Planned Parenthood. Took my first Friday shift. And it was abortion day. They did their abortions on Tuesdays and Fridays there. And just seeing those girls going into the clinic and knowing what they were about to do and knowing what they would feel after they did what they did, I was just undone. I was just tears on my knees. I was a slobbery mess. And so God showed me two things on the sidewalk that day. He showed me that I had a calling in the pro-life ministry, that I needed to be out there doing this. And He also showed me I needed more healing to do that. So I did seek out my healing through Healing Hearts Ministries International. I also went through the training with them for biblical counseling, so I could counsel other women who have been through abortions. And I started sidewalk counseling. So sidewalk counseling, for those who don't know, is when you actually are trying to talk to the women going into abortion clinic and offer them other options. A lot of them don't know that there's help out there for them. I started being a client advocate on their mobile ultrasound units. I started counseling with abortion-minded women Because as much as I loved sharing the healing of Jesus Christ, I really felt driven to prevent me from having to go through this, right? What would I want to? Then I moved to Arizona here, and I started leading the 40 Days for Life campaign in Glendale, which is about a little over an hour from here. I've done that for probably 4 or 5 years now. I have stepped back this year and am co-leader. I was a field director for Susan B. Anthony for Life America for a while, got involved politically in the fight against abortion, and my favorite thing is to talk to church groups like you guys and share my testimony, share the forgiveness there is in Jesus, but also tell you need to be doing something about this, right? I don't do all of this to make up for what I did. And Jesus has already taken care of all of that. But God showed me some things that I couldn't ignore, that I couldn't walk away from. I had to repent of my sin of abortion. I had to look at it and see it the way God saw it. And when you do that, you just get very broken about this. It was very hard. But He didn't let me off the hook. He didn't give me a hug and pat me on the back and tell me it's okay. It was the only choice you had. I had to come to repentance. He took my sin seriously. And so then I had to think, He took my sin of abortion very seriously. What does God think of over 63 million abortions that have been performed since 1973 when Roe passed? This isn't just a personal sin. It's a national sin. This is the evil of our age. And the church needs to take a bold stand to protect life. Right? God's not going to turn a blind eye to abortion. So I was 3 years old when Roe v. Wade was passed, so I don't remember a time without abortion being law of the land. And none of you remember that time until last year. What happened last year? Yeah, it got overturned. And it was sent back to the states to decide, right? So it doesn't mean there's no longer any abortions, but it's left up to the states to decide where we stand. But the climate is shifting. You can feel that shift. People are starting to talk about it more. You can see them respecting life more. And it's my prayer that your generation will be the generation to correct this injustice in our society, that we're going to see the end of abortion in y'all's day. So why should we speak out? Why should we talk about abortion? Because abortion is harmful. It hurts people. No one more than the unborn, and we're supposed to defend the unborn. And we have solid biblical commands that tell us why we should be involved. We're to speak up for the speechless, right, in the cause of all who are appointed to die. And then Proverbs 24:11 is one of the very powerful one we have. Deliver those who are drawn toward death and hold back those stumbling to the slaughter. So we're to intervene when we see injustice, where human lives, innocent human lives, are in danger. And then check out verse 12. He says, if you say, surely we did not know this, does not he who weighs the hearts consider it? He who keeps your soul, does he not know it? And will he not render to each man according to his deeds? So this implies that there may be circumstances where the injustice is so hidden or so accepted that people would claim they didn't know that there was an injustice going on. Yeah. And we're warned that God knows and that we won't be able to make the false claim of ignorance, that we didn't know that it was happening. So think about this. We went over the numbers here in the U.S., right? 1 million abortions per year in the U.S., about 2,500 per day. And just today, Friday, is abortion day at Planned Parenthood Glendale, just a little over an hour from here. 40 lives were lost, at least 40 lives. Probably more right now because of things going on in our political climate. Planned Parenthood is cramming in. I spoke to one of the sidewalk counselors who was out there today, and she said it was extremely busy. because according to our court order, they have 14 days left before their abortion day goes into effect, so they're trying to get a lot done. So 40 or more babies lost their lives today in Glendale. And most people probably went through their days today and didn't even give that a single thought, right? That didn't even cross our minds. So just whenever you think of the unborn, that crosses your mind, just out of the blue, be sure to pray for them, just wherever you're at. You don't have to dedicate your entire lives to the pro-life cause. But we should acknowledge this is happening, and we should be asking our Almighty God to intervene in this. We speak out because abortion hurts women. I can attest to that. And this is Matthew chapter 2. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. So Matthew was speaking about the slaughter of the innocents, and he was referencing in the Old Testament, Jeremiah 30:15. So y'all remember that story, the slaughter of the innocents? So shortly after Christ's birth, King Herod ordered that all the male children aged 2 and under be killed in his attempt to keep Jesus from interrupting his rule. In abortion, the women are the ones making that choice to end the life of their child. Not always. Sometimes there are forced abortions. And there are a lot of reasons for this, right? There's pressure from other people. There's ignorance. There's believing the lies that society has told them, etc., which makes the lamentation even worse when they realize the truth of what they've done. Women do not grieve the loss of a clump of cells. They do not grieve the loss of a product of conception. They grieve the loss of their children. So, we speak up out of obedience to Christ. We know that all people are valuable. Why are all people valuable? What do you think? Yeah. They're all made in God's image. All of us, even non-believers, our Lord God wants them with him. He loved us so much, he sent his son to die for us. He commended his love for us while we were yet sinners. Christ died for us. We're all his image bearers. We're all equal in that respect. And so we're to love them all, even unborn children, even ones, because it could be disabled children. There's no one of lesser value in God's eyes. So when the Pharisees questioned Jesus, asking which is the great commandment in the law, what did he tell them? What is the first and greatest commandment? Y'all know. What's the first and greatest commandment? Yes.
Not the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and soul.
Yes. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. And then the second is like it. What's the second? Yeah. Yep, to love your neighbors and yourself, right? So we speak up to defend our unborn neighbors. They're still our neighbors. And Jesus also says that whatsoever you do to the least of these, you do unto me. Right? You find that in Matthew. So we should fight for the least of our unborn neighbors, just as if we are defending Jesus himself, who first entered this world in the flesh through his mother's womb. All right. So, how many of you guys have had a pro-life conversation with somebody with an opposing view? How did that go? Did you feel confident? Ryan felt confident. Did y'all feel confident in your discussions? Do you feel like you could have been better equipped? Did it get heated? No? Did anyone have a heated argument? Yeah, you had one? Okay. Did you feel like you gained any ground, though, in the end? Or? Yeah? Good. Because we're planting seeds, right? Even if it's heated, we're giving people things to think about. Always stay on the offense, because they're the ones in the wrong, right? I was going to say we're in the right, but God is on our side. He fights. He fights this battle. So we're in the right in that respect. So I'm going to give you guys a few of the most common pro-life or pro-abortion claims. And I want you to take about 5 minutes just to discuss them among yourselves. Maybe you just do in groups of 3 or 4, however you're going to split up, and discuss these claims among yourselves. And then we're going to discuss them a little bit more. So Kaylee, I'm going to pass those out, and I'll give you about 5 minutes to talk about them. Huh? No.
One more? What do I think? I want to hear what you think first. So what do you think this argument, when somebody brings up this argument, the majority of the time they bring it up is just out of the blue, right? You're having a conversation about abortion, and then this is almost always the number one thing they bring up. So what does that tell you about the person or what they think of people who are in this situation? Like, why would they choose this one? Because they could choose a lot of reasons, like, it's my body, it's my choice, like, but this one is specifically chosen for a reason against somebody who's pro-life. Because they're not really saying something. Yeah. So, one is, it's extreme. They're taking you to the most extreme reason, right? They want to take it there. So they've now taken it to an extreme place. But second to that, they've taken it to an emotional place. Right? Because you can know the facts. Like if you go to the Speak Life website that Ryan and I have, you can know that literally 4% of women get pregnant due to rape. And out of those 4%, 80% keep their babies. The percentage of women we're talking about that want to have an abortion because they've been raped it's an almost impossible number. Like, rape doesn't automatically equal I don't want to keep my baby. There's two forms of what they're doing. They're trying to bring it as extreme as possible and as emotional as possible because they want to keep you out to be a person that doesn't care about you. So your first juncture is to bring the emotion back in, right? Like, if we want to go, like I said, I would easily could go, well, only 4% of women get raped, and out of that 4%, only 80% keep the baby. So what are we even talking about here? I could win the argument. It's impersonal. And what they're saying with this question is, do you care about her? Yes. Do you care about people? So, and what your answer is, I can care about her and 40. I can care about them both. And I know that if somebody's been raped, they're already in so much pain, and I don't want them to add more pain into that. I don't want to convince somebody to do something even more harmful to their body and even more hurtful to the person who really is. Rape doesn't equal that they don't like a baby. Rape means they've been through something so horrible, and adding something even worse to that could hurt them even more. So meet them where they're at. Don't deny this is extreme. And once you meet the emotion, you can come in with statistics. Actually, this woman is raped. Most of you see raped and so we need to also be aware of the big picture. Abortion is wrong, but even this happens. And we can create a situation in which we meet these women and counsel them for what they want without making them feel like they should kill their baby, or not even use the word kill, that they shouldn't have to be pregnant, or they shouldn't, be stuck in a situation that they can be empowered despite that. And I want them to know that this isn't going to fix the problem. It'll only make it worse. Adding abortion to a rape victim is doubling the victim. So it's meeting them emotionally first, recognizing that this is horrible. They've been in the most horrible thing ever. Circumstances. And then if you have that, you've broken them down, and that looks like, hey, I'm emotional.
All right, guys.
Then you can start to deal with the extremism of giving me the most extreme.
So, hope y'all had some good discussions. We'll talk about it a little bit here. So we had argument number one. It's not a baby. It's just a product of conception and a potential life. So those of you who had that claim, what did you come up with? Anyone have some good thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing is that just it's interesting that they said potential life. That like the baby's no different out of the womb than it is inside the womb. Like if it's a life outside, it's a life inside.
It's not just potential life, it's life now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone? Yeah. What'd you have in the back?
You could end a life that would save her and let it to save a life that could have made a difference.
Right. Yeah.
We are superior to other people and other humans, so my duty they say and let it go with God. And then since they can't speak, why do we leave it that choice for them if they don't have a say? They don't have to.
What about up here?
I feel like if it's a potential life, like, why would you not err on the side of this is life rather than, this isn't life?
Yeah. Good. I was going to bring that one up there. What'd you have?
Well, I think even if it was true that was just a common self wouldn't you want to fight for that too? Like, it's already living in the womb, but...
Like the fight for that potential?
Yeah, even if that was true, would you still want to fight for the life, the potential life that you have?
Yeah, good. So the argument here used to be, like the mouse, that when does life begin? That was always the question. But they rephrased it more to this, it's not a baby. Most acknowledge it's life now, right? So that used to be the big question. When does life begin? But it's hard to dispute that life begins at conception because the vast majority of our geneticists and our embryologists support this, that life begins at conception. You are born at conception, you have your own set of DNA, just like you have now. No one has the DNA that you have. You are unique, and you cannot be replicated. You cannot be recreated. And the same is true at conception with the zygote, right? And also some people, some pro-abortion people will say, I think you brought it up, they don't know when life begins. They're not sure when life begins. Okay, they're ignoring the science. But even if you ignore the science, that's actually a great pro-life argument. Because if you're not sure when life begins, then you should protect that life, right? You should err on the side of protecting life. No one goes into the emergency room and asks the doctor why he's saving these lives. It's just the right thing to do to protect life. And the same is true of the unborn children in the womb. If we're not sure when life begins, then we should err on the side of protecting that life. But we do know when life begins. So that's kind of a little bit of a moot point, but the pro-abortion people will still bring that up. You can use the example of hunting, right? If you and your buddies are out hunting for some elk and you see something in the brush up ahead and you're not sure what it is because it's a little off in the distance, but you're a good shot so you know you can get it. But it might be an elk, it might be a person, but you're not sure. Would you take the shot? No, because that might be a person that you're shooting. That would be reckless homicide, right? And the same with our little children. So I'm going to show you a quick video. I have my husband have to come up here and play it for me. I'll try this view to kind of wrap up that claim about life. And as you watch it, I want you to think about where in this process would someone think it's okay to end life. And the cool thing about this video, while he's bringing it up, stop it for just a minute. It's called Window to the Womb, and Live Action did this video. And 2 states, North Dakota and Tennessee, are requiring it to be shown in the schools, and several other states are considering putting it in their sex education programs, that this be shown.
This is Olivia. Though she has yet to greet the outside world, she has already completed an amazing journey. This is the moment that life begins. A new human being has come into existence. At fertilization, her gender, ethnicity, hair color, eye color, and countless traits are already determined. She begins to implant in the uterus about 1 week after fertilization. Her cells organize into what we call an embryo. At 3 weeks and 1 day, just 22 days after fertilization, Olivia's heartbeat can be detected. The buds of her arms and legs appear by 4 weeks. She begins to move between 5 and 6 weeks with both spontaneous and reflexive movements. At 6 weeks from fertilization, her brain activity can be recorded and bone formation begins. She can bring her hands together at 7.5 weeks, and separate fingers and toes emerge. She can also begin to hiccup. At the beginning of the 9th week, Olivia will have grown from a single cell into nearly 1 billion cells, and she is now called a fetus. She will suck her thumb and swallow, grasp an object, touch her face, sigh and stretch. At 11 weeks, she is playing in the womb, moving her body and exploring her environment. Her taste bud cells have matured by week 12, but are still scattered throughout her mouth. Her mother will first sense Olivia's movements between 14 and 18 weeks, an event called quickening. Beginning at 18 weeks, ultrasounds show speaking movements in her voice box. Around 20 weeks, with a lot of help, babies have survived outside the womb. At 27 weeks, her eyes are responding to light. She can recognize her parents' voices and will even recognize lullabies and stories. Olivia has gone on an amazing journey during these last 9 months. She will soon signal to her mother that it is time for delivery and greet the outside world.
pretty cool, huh?
That's
About life. All right, now, the next one's not so beautiful. Going to introduce you to Dr. Leroy Carhart. Was a notorious late-term abortionist working out of D.C. Went into, would go out west, Nebraska. And he passed away last year, but he would do abortions up to the moment of birth. And we're going to just kind of listen to what he has to say about the unborn children.
To the fetus, it makes no difference whether it's born or not born.
Right up until when? Like 38 weeks, 39
I
weeks?
don't know.
That you're not comfortable saying?
I'm not gonna say it. To the fetus, it makes no difference whether it's born or not born. The baby has no input in this as far as I'm concerned.
But it's interesting that you use the word baby because a lot of abortionists won't use that. They'll use the word fetus because they don't want to acknowledge that there's a life.
I think that it is a baby, and I use it with patients.
And you don't have a problem with
Absolutely.
killing a baby.
I have no problem if it's in the mother's uterus.
And that's actually a Students for Life video. Students for Life. Forget the political. So yeah, that was Leroy Carhart. He passed away last year, and he maintained this view on life and womb until his death. And then the last abortionist, I was going to put him in between, it would be good, but it's just easier to show the videos this one, would be Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And he was one of the founders of NARAL, one of the original abortion rights groups. And he was also a very successful abortionist in New York City. If y'all don't know, New York did pass the nation's first abortion laws before, in 1970, before Roe v. Wade came into effect in 1973. And so he ran highly successful abortion clinics, trained other abortionists on how to do abortions, perform abortions, but he came over to the pro-life side about the time that ultrasounds really started coming into use. And if you get a chance to look him up on YouTube, I recommend that you do it. This is a very old video, but he did the silent scream. The ultrasound technology was a large part of his pro-life conversion, and he could not deny that there was life in the womb any longer. So it's worth checking out, and he shows an actual ultrasound-guided abortion and shows you what is happening. So it's hard to watch, it's grainy, because it's an old video, but I recommend that you check that one out. All right, so this one is an article written by Sophia Lewis. She's an academic and author known for her radical ideas of family abolition and the use of surrogacy, which I find pretty ironic. And here's some of her views. The title says it all. Abortion involves killing, and that's okay. If the labor of pregnancy is productive of life, then interrupting that labor is, logically speaking, productive of death. She also had some other things. Y'all probably can't read these. But in the bottom, she says, what would it mean to acknowledge that a death is involved in an abortion? Above all, it would allow for a fairer fight against the proponents of forced gestating. When pro-life forces agitate against feticide on the basis that it is killing, pro-abortion feminists should be able to acknowledge without shame that yes, of course it is. And I show you the abortionist and this article to drive home one point. The other side knows that science supports life in the womb. They have the same science and the same facts at their fingertips as you do. And they know these are human babies that they are killing. Abortion is not just a knowledge issue, it's a heart issue. And the only way to change the human heart is through the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay? So life is valuable in the womb, and the pro-abortion advocate or workers or abortionists, their lives are valuable too. And so we need to find ways to convey that to them. First through prayer, because they do take a lot of prayer, but always turn your pro-life conversations back toward the gospel about how valuable not just the unborn child is, but how valuable their life is. There's power to save in God's word. And if you can effectively tell them that there's a God who created them, who loves them, and who died for them, you not only save babies' lives, but you save souls as well. All right. So argument number 2. My body, my choice. A woman has a right to control her own body, and no one should tell her what she can or can't do. Sounds good, right, ladies?
Yeah.
So, but those of you who had that argument, what are some of the problems with that? Oh, the guy's going to answer. Okay, come on.
Does the baby get a choice?
Does the baby get a choice? That's right. How many women are dying in the wombs? Future women. How many girls are being aborted every day? Yeah.
So ours where it's not even the woman's body, and once the baby is, like, the life is made, it's its own baby, it's its own human.
Yeah,
So,
it's its own body, right? The body inside of your body is not your body. Yeah.
that, like, the body is, like, the woman's choice, kind of, but that, like, no one can tell her what to really do. Like, it's her decision. Like, if she wants to go through the abortion, she can, but she's gonna end up really regretting it and ending up making the wrong choice, and then she's gonna wanna try to fix that, and then realize that there's no getting back.
Okay. So, yes.
And the counter argument is that we legalize the restriction of people's bodies all the time.
Right. Yep. So bodily autonomy is what they call it. It's now the main argument for abortion, right? It used to be, when does life begin? Now it is, my body, my choice. It's the woman's right to choose. So most concede that it is life in the womb, but they argue that the woman's life is more important because she's already here, she's talking, you can't see the unborn child. And abortion is so horrific that the only way it can be justified is to dehumanize the unborn child. But bodily autonomy doesn't mean we have autonomy over other people's bodies, right? I can't just walk over to Ryan and slap him because I don't like the hat he's wearing, right? I just can't do that, even no matter how badly I want to. I'm just kidding. I didn't know what hat you were going to wear.
I hate it so much.
The my choice part of specifically the my part, that doesn't make it a justified choice.
Mm-hmm.
Your personal body or your personal choice or actions does not mean it's a justified choice.
Right, we can always do what we want. We can't just always do what we want. Otherwise, we can justify any murder. But our bodies are regulated a lot, like you were saying, right? We have to put on seatbelts when we get in the car. We can't drive a car while we're under the influence, because if we make that choice, we endanger other people. We can't go streaking onto the football field just because we want to, because our team's doing bad. And the FAA really regulates you if you want to fly anywhere, like you can't get up while we're taking off or landing, you can't smoke in the lavatory, and at one time you couldn't even get on the plane if you didn't have a mask on, right? So there are a lot of regulations that we go through. So women have choices leading up to the pregnancy. And, right, her sex life is none of our business. If she's on birth control or not is none of our business. But now, during pregnancy, another life is involved. And so here's the graphic image warning, right? We don't have time for the thing. Can you speed up? Graphic image. So if you don't want to see the graphic image, don't look. Like how that turns around and hold it up. Big enough sign here. So this is what abortion does to someone else's body. That's not the woman's own. So the baby has no power, has no protection. The baby is dependent on the mother, but if dependency on another is the deciding factor for life, all of you would be in danger, right? Because all of us are dependent on other people at some point in our time, especially as toddlers, especially as younger children in elementary school. But abortion is the willful decision that the mother's life and her convenience is more important than the baby's life. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's a reality that I have to live with, and that was my choice. I decided that it wasn't my only option, and I didn't have to do that. And every woman faces that. All right, so I have to speed things along. So we need abortion in cases of rape or incest. So even Christians struggle with this one. So those who had this claim, did you come up with some good answers? Yeah.
You can't put the sin of the man on person.
Exactly, right? That's the main argument we have with that. The pro-abortion side uses this a lot because we have to have abortion around in case of rape because it evokes emotions, right? And I want you to consider this, that less than 1% of abortions that are performed are because of rape and incest, but they use that 1% to justify the 99. I don't use this argument, though, in cases of rape, because that 1% is valuable and important, too. It didn't matter if 100% of abortions are performed because of rape. All life's valuable, right? So this is for your knowledge. I don't, because of that 1%, I don't recommend using that. And then most people are, I use this one, because most people are shocked by this. 75 to 80% of women who become pregnant through sexual assault bring their child into the world. That's pretty astounding. Most people don't realize that. But most moms instinctively know that the violence that was inflicted upon them, they don't want to inflict onto their unborn child. Right? There's a great website. Let's see if I can find it on here. Called choicesfor.life.org, and it's just nothing but the stories of children who were conceived in rape and how wonderful and valuable their lives are. So in contrast, those women who were pregnant from rape and chose abortion now had to recover from 2 traumas. And of the 2 traumas, the abortion was the most damaging, or most traumatic to them, and they will tell you that, most women will. So I'm going to wrap it up so we can get to our panel portion. There's a resource table in the back, but there's 2 books that they're considered the leading ones. The Case for Life by Scott Klusendorf. He also has a lot of YouTube videos you can look up. Pro-Choice or Pro-Life by Randy Alcorn, and I have some of those. If you're really interested in reading that, come see me afterwards and convince me to give you one. Save the Storks has something called startcourse.org. It's a free interactive program, has downloadable workbook, and it goes through some apologetics and how to talk to women in pregnancies. So visit the tables, resources in the back, free merch. Also, Community Pregnancy Center has a table, and Students for Life has a table, and Heather's in here with us today. So I'm going to turn it over to for our panel. This is my granddaughter. She was born in January, so I had a good picture of her.
Thank you, Tammy. So what we're going to do is we have a host for each workshop. They're the person that's going to be asking questions. Me and Tammy are going to be on the panel. So our host tonight is Kaylee Hanley. Kaylee has always been passionate about the pro-life movement, but decided to personally get involved during her time in college. She interned with Oregon Right to Life, where she worked informational booth at fairs, gave speeches about abortion to high school and adult audiences, and spoke before the Oregon House of Representatives against pro-abortion resolution HCR 6, and requested a ban on sex-selective abortions. She has marched for life in the streets of downtown Portland and shared the love of Jesus with women suffering trauma after having an abortion. She believes that all life at all stages is precious and is excited to be here with you today. Let's welcome Kaylee.
questions, and then we're gonna open it up to you guys to see what questions you have. So the first question I have for you is, how would you address the claim that pro-life advocates only support babies inside the womb?
So we can tell you that pregnancy resource centers outnumber abortion clinics at least 6 to 1. Always change it. And so we have so much support and help for women in pregnancy. And I know that just from sidewalk counseling and talking to women who are considering abortion, if I just send out a text to my Christian family, not any one church, it's a bunch of us Christians who support life, whatever that woman needs, we would find a way to get it to them. So, yeah, we do support life, and many of our sidewalk counselors walk with those women and keep relationships and friendships up with them, watch those children.
I think one thing you'll notice is that we all, in the community, we call it a community. It's a pro-life community, and once you step into that community, it's very different. And in 2019, when I made the choice to step into the community, not just pro-life in belief, but pro-life in conviction, because there's a difference there. One of the lies that I had believed was that pro-lifers are aggressive, and cold, and all these things. But when I got on the other side and really got to know the pro-life community, they're all praying in abortion clinics, crying with women, adopting babies. They're active, and they're not just pro-life in word, they're pro-life in life. That's who they are. This is an identity for us who are in the community. We take it very seriously.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so the next question that I had was, should men stay silent on the topic of abortion because they physically can't have a baby?
You want to start that?
I'm gonna be quiet.
Oh, I have a lot of.
I don't think so. I think it's so important because I think a lot of us as men, we shirk so much of our fraternal responsibility, and God created men to be nurturers and to care, protect, and love their children. And men need to step up into that world and protect and love and care for their children. And it was really hard. It is very hard to be a man in the pro-life movement at times. You're instantly judged. I remember my first time ever teaching a workshop like this. I got yelled at a lot, and but you know, it's so important because it encourages other men to speak.
And that's a lie from the other side, that no uterus, no opinion, right? Because men are ordained to protect life and are given that responsibility. But the majority of women are at an abortion clinic because they don't have a man in their life who's going to stand up and be a dad. And so when they see men on the sidewalk praying for them and reaching out to them, it's a very powerful influence on them. And a lot of times they choose life just because of that. And also, just from a woman's perspective on the sidewalk praying, we don't get harassed as much when there are men out there with us. For some reason, I don't know if they see us as traitors, but a lot of the other side will attack women verbally. Of course, I've never been physically attacked, but men are very important in the pro-life movement. And don't buy into the lie of the other side that you have no opinion on this because you do.
Awesome. Do abortion restrictions really result in a higher number of back alley abortions?
So I showed you a picture of Dr. Bernard Nathanson up there, who founded NARAL. And in his book, he has several books out. One of them was Aborting America. And he does talk about how they made up that number. I think it was 1 million. They claim that 1 million a year would have back alley abortions and not from them. And so abortion was needed to save their lives. So they made that number up. And just the system they had back then, one would make the story, and then their buddy over here would confirm it. All right, so they kind of confirmed each other that way. I recommend, if you get a chance, also to read that, Aborting America, about how abortion started here. It was very politically driven. There were a lot of things happening. So do I think now that it would happen now if abortion was banned? I would say no, because the majority of women, myself included, and a lot of the women I counsel, will tell you, like in our minds, if it was so wrong, it would be illegal, right? But it's not illegal. We can do it. We weren't breaking any laws by what we did. We broke God's law, right? But we didn't break any of man's law. So we know that we would not have pursued a back alley abortion. If it were illegal, we just would not have had an abortion.
And the last question I had for you before we open it up to the audience, Tammy, you mentioned Arizona's kind of in the spotlight right now with the 1864 Arizona law ban being brought to the forefront. Does this mean no more abortions in Arizona? What are we?
So there's a lot of confusion out there. There's been confusion since Roe was overturned, right? So when Roe was overturned, we went to that 1864 law. We had an abortion ban on the books that's written in our laws. And so abortion stopped for a few weeks. And then the judge overturned it or put a stay on it so we could do abortions. And then it stopped again for another week and then it was back on the table. So we're kind of seeing that play out now. So y'all have probably heard about the Arizona Supreme Court, the decision they made this week. So basically what they were doing is they were upholding the law that was already on the books as written, which is an abortion ban in Arizona. That's supposed to go in effect in 2 weeks, probably down to 12 or 11 days now. They gave a little grace period for the abortion clinics. So the Arizona Supreme Court did right? The judicial branch is supposed to interpret the laws as it's written, and that's what we have. So it is going to go back. If we want a new law, the legislative branch has to write that new law. And it's probably, they're trying to get it as a referendum, trying to get abortion enshrined into our Constitution, Arizona State Constitution, as a woman's right, and that will allow it all the way up to 9 months for any reason. So we need to really stand up and speak out when we're on the side of life. This is a time in Arizona history. It took 49 years to get Roe v. Wade overturned. If this is enshrined in our Constitution, it will be very hard to fight abortion.
Does anybody have any questions? Your hand went up.
How come we have abortion centers here, like in Arizona, but we don't have places that, like, try to help, like, the parents that want to go through abortions? Like, how come we don't have places that are trying to get their minds off of abortions and trying to get them to, like, turn away instead of going with it?
Visit the Community Pregnant Center table that's over in the worship center. They'd love to talk to you about all the resources they have. So they're the closest one to us. They're, maybe a mile down the road. And so they do free ultrasounds, they have baby store, they provide a lot of help. And that's just in Prescott, so there's one in Prescott Valley, in Chino Valley, in Camp Verde, and too many to mention in Phoenix. So pregnancy resource centers outnumber abortion clinics. So there's help out there, and that's our job as the church, the body of Christ, is to get that information out to the women who need it. Most of them don't know it's out there for you.
I think it's really important that we don't walk in ignorance. One of the things that was really, Tammy's been such a inspiration to me, because I got to go to the 40 Days for Life barbecue, and it was so cool to meet so many in the community, and I was blown away by some of these organizations in Phoenix, and the way they help families and step in financially and provide housing. So there is so much help in our state that private people, individual citizens are doing.
And I forgot to mention, there's a Village of Hope that is a maternity home that just opened up in Prescott in the past year. So we even have houses available in town.
Right there.
So you said you had an abortion, right? Like, you said you had an abortion, right? Okay, and I'm assuming you had other kids since you have a kid. Did the, like, after having other kids, did, like, you having an abortion affect the way you, like, looked at your kids now or, like, thought about it? Like,
It probably influenced my repentance a lot, because I had an abortion after I had my daughter. So I had between like 2 children. And so you really know, after you go through a pregnancy, you really know that's life. And you feel your baby kick. And you see the life when it comes out, and you have dreams and hopes for that child before it even comes out. So you have that relationship while the child is still in the womb. So that does affect. And one of the heartbreaking things I see, and I kind of mentioned about the lies that women believe that lead them to an abortion clinic, and then later they will realize the truth, and it's going to hurt them really badly. But one of the more painful things to see is when you have women get an ultrasound who have had abortions before, and maybe they didn't get a good life-affirming ultrasound, because 80% of women will choose life when they have an ultrasound. And they see that child on the screen and just break down in tears because they realize what that abortion meant when they had the previous abortion.
Can I say something really quick about that? In addition to supporting pregnant mothers, there are organizations that support post-abortive mothers. Places where you go and you spend a large amount of time and they walk and work through your abortion with you and bring you to the point of repentance and how you can walk through that and live the rest of your life knowing that you made that choice. So there's support on both ends.
Yeah. And that's an important point too, because we know that we have, if you're Christian, if you come to Christ after abortion, you know you have forgiveness, and you know you have eternal life in heaven, but you don't have that healing. It's just a matter, that sin is so grave that Christ's grace doesn't fully cover it, and that's not true. And sometimes you need someone to walk with you to show you that.
Over there. Ms. Stripes.
What did it feel like after you aborted your baby?
The shame and regret. Do you mean physically or emotionally?
Both.
Both, and spiritually, because I was spiritually crushed, emotionally crushed. And then physically, some women, abortion is harmful, and many women have severe side effects from them. I know many women who can't have children after abortion. That wasn't my case because I did have children. And so I just only had minor physical effects. They were bad at home. But the emotional and spiritual consequences are very hard.
Okay. Where would you stand if someone argued that the baby threatened the mother's life, or the baby's life would be like, it had a low, survivability outside of the how, yes, so I guess that's 2 parts. So how would you argue the mother's side if the baby would threaten her life, and then how would you argue if the baby were to have a low survivability?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. Abortion always ends a life. And there's a lot of other things that you can do in those situations. And one of the interesting things that, as you do research into this topic, is that the situations where it would threaten the life of the mother, it's not, the procedures that are happening are not necessarily abortion. That's my understanding of it. But yeah. So the intention is not to kill a baby, it's to save the life of the mother. I think some of that is really, really difficult and personal too, but I think that life is always needing to be protected. Performing an actual medical abortion is killing holes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and then so viability is around 20 weeks because our science is getting so good, our medical advances. So after 20 weeks, no matter what's going on with the mom, the child can be delivered and go on to survive.
And even before that, you can always deliver. It's all about intention, right? So we see that
if you go and you have an abortion, the intention is to kill one life, right? So there's always that opportunity for what we call maternal fetal separation. So you deliver the baby early, and even if the baby isn't going to make it, you do whatever you can to preserve both lives, right? And the truth is, abortion is never medically necessary. So if you see late-term pregnancies where it's like, oh, she has preeclampsia, she's going to die, like, it's way more invasive to go have a late-term abortion. That takes 3 days, where a cesarean section only takes about 30 minutes. So we see that it's actually way more invasive to have that late-term procedure.
Okay, one more. Okay.
That clump of cells picture made me wonder this, and do you think pregnant women like have the are educated of like people at the abortion clinics, they're just doing it for money, like for nothing else? Are they like educated in that?
The women who are working, or the people working at the abortion clinic?
No, the woman
the
who
women
wants to
who-
get an abortion.
That are going. So, yeah, I can tell you the abortion clinic's not telling them what's going on. They try to avoid showing them ultrasound at all costs. We always tell them, make sure they show you the ultrasound, but even then it's tricky because you can manipulate and make shadows and things. But they don't go over the side effects very well. I didn't have anyone talk to me about that, even though informed consent's required. I just remember saying, them asking, are you sure you want to do this? That was the extent of the pre-abortion counseling.
I have one last thing that I wanted to share with you guys, is that idea of conviction, and that not understanding and not spending the time to step into this stuff is why you don't have conviction. The difference of conviction is that you have to do something about it. And not everyone has to do everything, but you have to do something. And my encouragement, and with your parents' permission, would be to go do 40 Days for Life this fall. That is such an important thing. We take our youth group with Tammy. She would love to connect with you to do that, but to stand outside of an abortion clinic and to get on your knees and pray, it's moving into conviction. Because I'm going to stand here, connect with Heather about starting a club at your school and start educating people. I have a website, Speak Life Collective, where I've written 90 different pages worth of content that you can go to and get educated on the content. Step into something, because right now it's just information for you, and to go from conviction it's so important because you realize that it's necessary. And so until you, I don't know, it's like I've always been pro-life, never not been pro-life. But when the moment for me was in 2019, January 2019, when New York passed the Reproductive Act, and you literally had people applauding that late-term abortions could take place in the state of New York, and it was like I could hear the demonic presence. It was like the veil had been lifted, and I could see evil right before my eye, and I said, as a man in this country, am I going to stand by and do nothing? Or we're going to step into it? So my question to you is are you going to just go to the workshop and be like, okay, I am pro-life? Or are you going to step into something? However little it may be, conviction. And so go by the booths, step into it, get educated, and see how God might be able to use you.
Let's thank Tammy and Ryan.
Oh, the book, yes. All right. So I have a book to give away, and this is actually written by Steve Carlin and Sean Carney. What to Say When, and it's how to talk to the pro-abortion side, okay? This is a great book. I used a lot of it for my talk tonight. So if anyone would take it home and read it, lift up your hands. I'm going to give it to this young lady back here. And for the rest of you, I have a different book. And that is the Pro-Choice or Pro-Life. I'll give it. And you'll read it, lift your hand. If you want. All right. Let me get to this other side of the room real quick. And then we're
you guys have to go, feel free to go, and make sure if your parents are waiting for you that they find you. Okay, guys?
See you tomorrow.
We'll be standing around if you guys have your own ride, or standing around, waiting around to talk to you guys.
Who wants it?
If you felt
Just
out
of reach. And there's more.
yeah.
Yeah.
On your campus.
And there's more things back here, guys. Stop by and get them, okay?
9 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.